Now know a bit more about the deployment of federal agents to Albuquerque after an exchange of letters between Mayor Tim Keller and John Anderson. He's the U.S. attorney here for the state, for the area, I should say. Mr. Anderson says he's repeatedly assured the mayor that the city can expect traditional policing in line with existing federal and local partnerships. The mayor says that's what he demands, but said in not so many words that he knows who sets the agenda for federal agents, and he's skeptical. And Serge, it's hard to know what's happening behind the scenes, certainly, but at least publicly, does this appear that's at least getting publicly sorted out just a little bit? Is this movement of some sort?
I think it's acknowledgement that this is more fraught than perhaps the folks who created Operation Legend thought it would be, and or people caught wind of it and decided to address it. But yeah, it's sorted out is a strong word. It's paper exchanges, and we'll see what happens. The proof is in the pudding, and there's many examples we could say we can probably point to of we thought it was going to be one thing and then it was something else. Right. And so I'm just as skeptical as anyone about this. These things that have been written down reflecting the reality on the ground. I'd be delighted as these things go. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm. Skepticism is a healthy thing in this world right now. Steve Terrell, interestingly, the U.S. attorney chided the mayor a bit and others for language equating agents to stormtroopers, for assuming it was going to be a Portland situation. Is that a fair criticism?
Well, I hope that the U.S. attorney is right and it's just a bunch of agents helping local police. Mm-hmm. But how can you not be suspicious? This comes right, after we see all these scenes from Portland beating up protesters, taking them away in weird unmarked vans, having these guys out there throwing tear gas at mothers. And, and I think it was the governor who said that the timing's very suspicious, and that's an understatement. I hope he's right. But, normally when as others have pointed out, Mayor Keller and others have pointed out, normally when the feds and come to help locals, it's because they've been requested to come. It's because, they have memorandums of understanding in place and, the rules are set. You can't help but think that this is just, the Trump administration trying to stir up protest violence before the election. Mm-hmm. In anything that happens 5 months before an election, or is that how long it is? So close to an election,
right?
You got to be skeptical about.
It's a healthy thing. Crystal, interestingly, one of the things that has not been answered, Steve just made reference to it, that, usually with these agreements, you have an understanding of the work involved, the scope of work, maybe it's better said, but then also an end date. But I'm confused by what yardstick, Crystal, should we measure these folks for success? How do we know they're being successful?
Yeah, it's I don't think that the Trump administration or any administration from a current, like any part of that administration, understands success metrics, key performance indicators, or when's the right time to not put themselves in this bad position. So, to answer that question, it's like I don't even think they even consider it. Right. And when you talk about what will be successful in this type of operation, we don't even know why. Like, obviously, there's no explanation for what has come to why they're coming in here. Mm-hmm. And to kind of pivot for a quick second, I think it was also really interesting where Sheriff Gonzalez actually went to Washington, D.C. on a very secret operative trip. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we get this understanding that the federal agents are coming in. Mm-hmm. So I'm very suspicious as well. I'm very suspicious about whether or not, that type of meeting had an exact influence. I can't imagine the amount of a liability that Sheriff Gonzalez has now caused, and how people are possibly drawing correlations of these federal agents coming in.
Sure. Crystal, let me ask you a question on that point. There's a lot of folks who are very supportive of this move. Let's not kid ourselves here. There's a lot of Albuquerque citizens who've been screaming for something like this for a long time. They're frustrated. They're at the end of it. They're making decisions about whether to leave or not. This has been a pre-pandemic world, I suppose. So how, again, is there a danger that, the zeal to have these folks in by some folks might overrun some of the gains we've made, when it comes to, how the police here in Albuquerque?
I've seen other officers and I've seen, former officers comment about, yes, now they feel suddenly safer because the federal agents have come in.
Right.
But it goes back to what you had said. What exactly is the work plan and milestones of success that these individuals have to prove and also restore faith? Because let's be real, a lot of the reasons why we had problems in the past, it wasn't just because of the officers. It wasn't just because of the jail system. It was an entire microcosm of problems that just needed to be untangled. I don't think that the federal agents are actually the one-stop shop and to solve this entire tangled problematic issue of crime in Albuquerque. So I think, honestly, I think it was just another political move, but I do applaud the leaders that we have currently that are showing that, yes, they'll work if they need to, but we're not necessarily welcoming it, nor did we ask for this. So.
Right. But Serge, on that point, interesting point Crystal just made there at the end there, the governor did, after her initial language, did sort of turn around and say, we're willing to work with these folks, but under certain conditions. The mayor sort of took the same approach. We're willing to work with these folks, but under the same conditions. Is that good enough? And then we have, of course, our attorney general saying he's going to be watching for civil rights violations. Do you feel we're covered now? Are we in a good system to have these folks come in now?
I guess it's as good as I can hope for, right? To know that folks are watching and paying attention and have, received certain assurances.
Right.
As I said before, what happens in real life is, possibly a whole other question. But, there's nothing that we could necessarily do to stop this. And so having an understanding from the get-go it's not unhelpful.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel a teeny bit better.
I'm curious how you think the rest of New Mexico is considering what's happening in Albuquerque with this operation, so to speak.
Oh, I mean, I suspect the rest of New Mexico is like 35 agents, maybe 30. Why don't you send in, put a 0 on the end of that, and sees this as a hotbed of crime and whatnot, and that it's just reaping what we sow down here, I guess.
Right. I would agree. I'm getting that same feedback.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Crystal.
I will say, too, I think it was really interesting whenever the articles came out. I have half of my team in the Philippines, and instantly they immediately thought, well, is everything okay in Albuquerque? We hear the federal agents are going. There must be a genuine problem. I just feel bad for the city because we just can't catch a break on positive news, right? All of a sudden you hear federal agents, and now, of course, it's going to cause another level of concern for travel. For travel and tourism, for economic development. It's going to cause concern for resources, investments, et cetera. So obviously it's another story that's not helping the positive perception of Albuquerque.
I appreciate that so much. It was one of my first thoughts when this all came down is we really don't need this perception problem right now, but here it is. All right, the Black Lives Matter movement in New Mexico is still in full swing, of course, even though the public protests have slowed to a trickle. And at the heart of the calls for change are young people. This week, we take time to hear from the next generation of organizers and activists to find out what the movement means to them and what specific reforms they want. I also got the chance to get their reaction to the news about Operation Legend.